I watched every single Ryan Gosling movie since the year 2000 to prove once and for all that this man is literally me.
It's only part-time.
Gosling has starred in a total of 26 films as of July 2023, and in this video, we're going to be ranking every single one.
Guess I'll see you in the movies.
Before we jump in, let's go back to where it all began.
Let me show you something. Come on.
It's 1980 in a little town you might know called London.
Looking at the morning newspapers.
Nope, actually it's this one, in Ontario, Canada. It was a cold November morning at St. Joseph's Hospital when a little boy was born to Thomas and Donna Gosling. Snowflakes glisten in the trees, dusting the ground outside the window, while a faint cry emerges from the delivery room. A little hand reaches out and the young boy utters his first words.
A drive?
I'm very, very pleased to welcome to our show tonight Ryan Gosling, Canada's latest and greatest mouseketeer, I guess you could say.
Fast forward 12 years into the future, the year is 1993, and Gosling is starring alongside Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Have you had a chance to spend any time with the other guys in the MMC?
Almost definitely, yeah. Just recently, Justin and I were playing basketball. Yes.
This 90s Disney variety show is where Gosling got a start in the acting and performing world. Gosling went on to star in a few small films like Frankenstein and Me and Nothing Too Good for a Cowboy. Although I'm pretty sure nobody has seen those, myself included.
Oh, this is Karen. She's from Ohio. We're going together.
But let's be honest, if you clicked on this video, you already know all of this. So let's dive right into ranking every single Ryan Gosling movie. For clarity, the rankings are determined by a combination of two factors: the quality of the film as a whole and the impact of Gosling's performance. For example, I think Remember the Titans is a great film, but Ryan's impact is so small that the film ends up somewhere in the middle. Number 26, Drive. Drive was released in 2011 and centers around a nameless getaway driver in Los Angeles. Okay, I'm kidding. Before you click away in rage, let's go to the actual number 26, The Slaughter Rule. Released in 2002, The Slaughter Rule is Gosling's second film in the spotlight. He plays a high school football quarterback named Roy Chutney. After the JV team is cut, an energetic and definitely pedophilic homeless man named Gid recruits Roy to be the captain of his six-man team. Roy's father recently passed away, so he often finds comfort in being with Gid as he fills that paternal role in his life. At the same time, Gid struggles to contain his homosexual tendencies, which strains the relationship. This movie clearly had a really small budget, and despite being a football movie, no one seems to have much talent in that department. The writing is pretty poor, and some of the line delivery is really goofy. Also, the soundtrack just did not work for me. But that said, if you want to see a yodeling Ryan Gosling or one of Amy Adams' earliest movie roles, then, well, actually never mind, it's still not worth it.
Oh gosh. Yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay.
Number 25, Murder by Numbers. In the same year, Gosling starred in this crime thriller alongside another big name, Sandra Bullock. Gosling plays Richard Haywood, a cocky, rich high schooler who, along with his friend Justin, planned to commit the perfect murder. The boys, bored and lacking purpose, believe that the only way to live is to commit crime.
All real freedom risks crime. Indeed, freedom is crime, because it thinks first of itself and not of the group.
On the other end, investigating the murder is Cassie Mayweather. Battling with her own tormented past, she follows the clues and missteps of the boys, culminating in a final life-or-death showdown. Murder by Numbers falls just short of being so bad it's good. So basically, it's just bad. All the performances are pretty solid, and the premise is interesting, but the film really falls apart in the writing and the pacing. At one point, a baboon attacks Cassie out of nowhere in a shed, as if it was some huge payoff, but then it's never referenced again for the rest of the movie. Why was there a baboon living in a gardening shed? It's probably not important. Gosling's performance is charismatic and entertaining, but his character is definitely not one to model your life decisions by.
One cannot live fully without embracing suicide and crime.
24. All Good Things. All Good Things is an extremely forgettable thriller based on the true story of Robert Durst. Gosling plays a free-spirited, wealthy man named David Marks, who comes from a family of real estate tycoons in New York City. In the early days, David wants to make his own path apart from his domineering father, and he marries Kirsten Dunst's character, Katie. The charm and good haircuts of the honeymoon period are quick to fade, however, and Gosling becomes brooding, sinister, and boring. When Katie disappears, David is suspected to have killed her. The film really drops the ball in developing Gosling's character. It opts to give David the appearance of a murderer without substantiating that image with consistent actions. And speaking of appearances, when David goes on the run, he dresses up as a woman for a while, and that's an image that I never wanted to see. Between the sideburns, wigs, and makeup, this film did not do Ryan any favors in the looks department. The true story of Robert Durst is incredibly interesting, so I recommend just skipping the film entirely and doing some reading instead. 23. Gangster Squad. I have to confess something to you all. I did not finish Gangster Squad. I hit pause about 2 years ago and never came back. But here's what I can say. You can tell the film really wanted to be an authentic, slick gangster movie, but it just comes off as trying too hard and coming up very short. The writing is pretty awful, the cast is underutilized, and I'd just rather watch a better film like Chinatown or Goodfellas. The one saving grace of Gangster Squad is the dynamic duo Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. And believe me, this will not be the last time we see them side by side on the big screen. I'm a huge fan of Gosling's slick look in this film, but I don't know if I ever really bought his high-pitched voice.
Are you weak in the knees yet?
Sure I am.
For the most part, these lower slots have been reserved for Gosling's earlier films, or at the very least, not his newer, more popular movies. Here, to break that pattern, is The Gray Man. This is Gosling's second most recent film to date, but that does not stop it from being one of his worst. The Gray Man is a generic, heartless action film that prioritizes action set pieces over quality storytelling. The cast feels incredibly underutilized, which is a shame because Ryan Gosling, Ana de Armas, and Chris Evans in the same film should have been a home run. The plot is nothing you haven't seen before, so why would you want to watch it again, but worse? I fell asleep the first time I tried watching it. It's the kind of action movie where everything blends together into one indiscernible blob of noise and color, making it very challenging to stay awake.
Talk about action, on top of action, on top of action.
And then more action.
And then more action.
And then some sneaky action.
Yeah, and they snuck a little action.
They snuck a little action.
I have no issues with Gosling's performance as Six. All the responsibility for this failure falls on the Russo brothers. They're fun one-liners that'll make you smile, but the poor writing and directing smother any hope of a respectable film. 21. Only God Forgives. Only God Forgives is Gosling's second film directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. You're going to want to remember that name for the future. Refn's style is characterized by vibrant neon colors, stylized brutality, and the use of monolithic characters. These are characters that have very few lines, but are willing to go to great lengths to achieve their goals. Over the course of the film, Gosling only has 17 lines. He plays Julian, a drug dealer who runs his family operation out of a kickboxing gym in Bangkok. Julian's mother, Crystal, forces him to find and kill the man responsible for his brother's murder. This film excels in visual spectacle, but aside from that, it didn't really work for me. It's very metaphorical and abstract, and I feel it left a lot of potential on the table. As for Gosling, what few lines he has, he makes up for in pensive stares and lonely eyes. Something tells me this guy would do really well driving a car. 20. Song to Song. Song to Song is directed by Terrence Malick and is easily one of the most unique films Gosling has been in. I can't attest to fully grasping Malick's style because this is the only film of his I've seen, but at times I loved it and other times it just felt pretentious and uninteresting. The beauty of this film really comes in waves. The cast is surprisingly stacked, however, I can't help but feel they were underutilized. Song to Song is a film without a script, so the actors are given the freedom to completely improvise while the cameras are rolling. This lends itself to some intensely beautiful moments, but also ugly, unsatisfactory ones. The music choice is also very unique, and in a way, the audio experience tells the story, as the title says, from song to song. This film is tough to get through, but if you do manage, the end is very worth it. I don't think I've seen Ryan Gosling smile more in any other film. Song to Song is a strange blend of unceremonious filmmaking, giving way to some of the highest highs and the lowest lows. And trust me, the lows get pretty low. 19. The United States of Leland. The United States of Leland takes us back to the early days once again, with Gosling playing a withdrawn teenager named Leland. One day, Leland kills his girlfriend's autistic brother and gets sent to prison. Through conversations with his teacher Pearl, we get to understand Leland's perspectives on the world and other individuals. They discuss the sadness and pain that lingers under the surface of everyday life. Leland has an acute awareness and sensitivity to this plight, exacerbated by his recent breakup.
If you have to wake me up in the middle of the night to tell me that I don't have anything to worry about, it kind of makes it seem like I do have something to worry about.
The film has a sad, subdued tone which I think a lot of people will resonate with. That said, it's pretty messy and unfocused, especially in the first half. With so many family members appearing without introduction, it took me a long time to figure out whose parents were whose and who's dating and whose siblings. The moments with Ryan Gosling and Don Cheadle really shine, with both actors giving great performances while they dissect the complexities of life.
There's all this sadness, and there's nothing you can do about it. And all I wanted was for it to go away. Not getting angry, not prayers, and not tears. Nothing can make something that happened unhappen.
18. The Big Short. I watched The Big Short back in high school for an economics project, and at the time I had no idea who Ryan Gosling was. Despite that fact, I was still aware of the rest of the star-studded cast and enjoyed the experience. The film covers the events of the 2008 housing market crash and the handful of investors who predicted the subprime mortgage crisis. Throughout the movie, various real-world celebrities have cameos explaining the complicated financial jargon, which keeps intrigue high and lowers the likelihood of audiences zoning out in confusion.
Wall Street loves to use confusing terms to make you think only they can do what they do. Here's Margot Robbie in a bubble bath to explain.
So the banks started filling these bonds with riskier and riskier mortgages. Thank you, Banjo. That way, they can keep that profit machine churning, right?
Gosling plays an investment banker named Jared Vennett, and he's amazing in that role. I could watch him explain the housing market with Jenga blocks all day. This one definitely deserves a rewatch, and I'm positive it will rank higher when that day comes.
That's America's housing market.
17. The Ides of March. The Ides of March is a political drama directed and starred in by George Clooney. Gosling's character, Stephen Myers, is a junior campaign manager for Governor Mike Morris's presidential campaign. The film is about the struggle to control the ramifications of corruption in the political system. It pits victory and virtue against each other and requires you to choose. It's an interesting look at how that corruption can slowly seep its way into even the most honest and upright. Power has the ability to entice and skew perception of reality, which can devastate not only your career, but your personal life too. I enjoyed this film, although I find it mildly forgettable. If Gosling wasn't in it, I'd probably lose interest pretty quickly. The movie has a very provocative premise, and if politics pique your interest, I'd give The Ides of March a watch. For me though, it's been a while since I've seen it, and I have no desire to watch it again. 16. Stay. One of my biggest disappointments with cinema as a whole is the complete utter utilization of transitions. Stay is the first film to finally appease this deep desire of mine. In other words, this movie has some of the wackiest, most absurd transitions I've seen in any film, and it's incredible. The film centers around a psychiatrist, Dr. Sam Foster, and his patient, Henry Latham. As soon as Henry shows up in Sam's life, certain events plant seeds of doubt in his mind that there's something more to Henry. Henry told the doctor the exact date and location of where he plans on committing suicide, so the clock is ticking for Sam to save his life. The film culminates in one grand reveal, and it brought a tear to my eye. After an entire movie of confusion, desperately trying to understand this malfunctioning world, everything becomes clear. It's a film that really requires a rewatch because suddenly all the wild transitions, disorienting camera work, and mistakes make sense and create a bigger picture. This film flew by, and although it felt a little unfocused at times, the final sequence sticks the landing and effectively ties it all together. Gosling is at his most emo in this film, and I'm all for it. 15. Fracture. Fracture is a pretty generic murder mystery thriller, but there are a few elements that made my experience pretty enjoyable. First, the film opens with Anthony Hopkins driving a Porsche Carrera GT. It has nothing to do with the film, but that's my dream car, so I was immediately invested. Second, Rosamund Pike is amazing, and what's even more amazing is Ryan Gosling flirting with her. My only gripe is that she should have had a lot more screen time.
Do I know you?
Nikki Gardner. Your new boss.
Oh.
The third element, a surprise to no one, is Gosling playing an attorney named Willie Beecham. Fracture's plot is largely engaging and has some unexpected twists, but like so many films on this list, it's the characters that carry this film on their shoulders. Willie is tasked with prosecuting Theodore Crawford, who openly admits to murdering his wife.
You shot your wife? It's just like I suddenly snapped and I got the gun and I shot her in the head. I know it was wrong.
What first appears to be an incredibly simple conviction turns into an elaborate game of cat and mouse to find a mistake in Crawford's carefully crafted plan. Hopkins essentially plays a less interesting Hannibal Lecter, but it turns out when you take something incredible and make it a little worse,
It takes a very special sort of person to look into someone's eyes and shoot them Willie.
It's still pretty decent. Overall, the film isn't half bad. Much like number 14, Half Nelson. Half Nelson is a film about opposing forces.
And what's change? It's this, it's opposites. It's two things that push against each other in opposite directions.
Eventually, if neither force lets up, there's going to be a collision. This is the pattern that characterizes the life of Dan Dunn, a junior high history teacher. On the one side, he's a down-to-earth, easygoing teacher that his students can bond with.
Like robots and stuff, right?
It could be robots. It could be robots, but let's say it's a metaphor.
And on the other, he's a drug addict. At the intersection of these two worlds lies a student named Dre. After discovering Dan high in a bathroom stall, a bond is formed between them. This relationship gives way to an incredibly sincere depiction of loneliness and addiction. Dre too is caught up in a life she knows is wrong, but feels she can't escape. She helps deal drugs. This duplicitous and painful aspect in the lives of both teacher and student culminates in one of the most impactful scenes in the movie. On a delivery one night, Dre is invited inside the motel where a handful of people are doing drugs. Dan appears in the doorway and meets Dre down at her level. Her teacher, and more importantly, her closest friend, nods and extends a wad of cash. So much emotion is conveyed in this scene, even while no words are exchanged. Gosling gives an incredible performance, but the film as a whole struggled to really keep me engaged. 13. Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is a football movie taking place during the Civil Rights Movement in 1971. When an all-white school is forced to integrate with an all-black school, Coach Herman Boone rises to the challenge of forming a unified football team. Through the rigor and hardship of training camp, the team becomes one unit. Black or white, it doesn't matter because they're the Titans. Ryan Gosling's role is incredibly small in this film, but the handful of scenes he has are ones to remember.
Huh? Yes. This one. I mean, I don't even have to ask, but I will. What do you think of this one?
I never really thought Gosling was that believable as a football player, so it's pretty funny that he managed to be in 2 separate films playing that part. Gosling's effect in this film is very minimal, but Remember the Titans is still very much worth the watch. Treat it more like a Ryan Gosling Easter egg hunt in an otherwise normal football movie. 12. The Believer. The Believer was released 1 year after Remember the Titans, and was really Gosling's breakout role. Even this early in his career, Gosling's performance is electric. The film follows an anti-Semitic skinhead named Danny Ballant, who himself is a Jew.
He said you were bar mitzvahed there in March of 1988.
He said, and you believe that? And you call yourself a real reporter?
Okay, so you're saying that that's not true.
Do I look Jewish to you? Look at this.
Doubting his religion from a young age, he ran from it until that defiance transformed into an all-encompassing hatred that consumed his life. The fear of coming to terms with himself and God is smothered by a bloodlust which ironically leads back to himself. Danny wants to lead the movement to eradicate Jews, but his deep-rooted beliefs and loyalty to Judaism resurface and perpetuate his doubt. The final scene really drives home the message of the film for me. In the afterlife, he ascends a seemingly infinite staircase. His old teacher tells him,
"Don't you know? There's nothing up there."
Yet he presses on anyway. A never-ending cycle of avoiding the very thing that will enable him to move forward, yet simultaneously striving in vain for something to give his life meaning. While external violence does play a part in this film, the emphasis is on Danny's internal conflicts and how they manifest in his actions. The film has its unsavory moments, but I think it's deserving of more recognition. 11. The Notebook. I'll just come right out and say it. I love The Notebook. It's the film that really set me on this whole Ryan Gosling journey. It's not great by any means, and I actually really don't like the scenes when they're old, but the film has a charm that just can't be replaced. Rachel McAdams is one of my favorite female actresses, and together the pair have such great chemistry.
You're fantastic. You really are. I'm impressed.
I'm not usually like this.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
you are.
The film is about young love, tragically torn apart, and the obstacles that are overcome to reignite the flame that used to burn so bright. It's all incredibly unrealistic. For example, there's absolutely no reason for Allie to leave her wealthy, kind, and loving fiancé, who looks like this, to go back to a guy she knew for 1 summer, who looks like this. Yeah, I know, looks aren't everything, but Noah is absolutely a downgrade.
What do you want?
That said, if I was in Allie's shoes, I'd do the same thing. I mean, come on, he's still Ryan Gosling. I just wish he had gotten a haircut, man. Even in some of the movie posters, they removed Gosling's facial hair because it just looks better. Noah and Allie's dysfunctional relationship makes for a sappy, unrealistic romance, and I'm absolutely here for it.
I'm sorry. Get in the water, baby. Baby, would you get it?
So long as you don't expect your relationships to pan out this way, I recommend it. 10. Barbie. Barbie is the most recent installment on this list, and unfortunately, it let me down. But you know who didn't let me down? Ryan Gosling.
So cool.
Barbie is a strong contender for the funniest film he's been in, only outdone by one, which we'll talk about very shortly. The plot of Barbie essentially has two components. It begins as a quest for Barbie to find her owner in the real world to set Barbie Land back to normal. But by the end, it becomes a battle of Kens versus Barbies to take control of Barbie Land. The script is hilarious when it's good, but eye-rolling when it's bad. Ken's arc is by far the most compelling, and I wish this was a film dedicated to him. In the real world, he discovers a society that not only notices men, but values them.
Out there, I was somebody. And when I walked down the street, people respected me just for who I am.
This starts a bit where Ken wants to establish a patriarchy in Barbie Land, filled with men on horses, brewski beers, and mini fridges. In reality, a patriarchy isn't what he wants, he just wants to show Barbie how it feels to be inferior for once. The film is all about female empowerment and carries a strong feminist agenda, which was to be expected. It stumbles in the way it tries to conflate the society of Barbie Land with that of the real world. A world controlled by women is unfortunately the dream for so many young girls, and this film caters to that desire at the expense of men.
Please may the Kens have one Supreme Court justice.
Oh, I can't do that. But maybe a lower circuit court judgeship.
We accept, as long as we can wear robes.
That said, it's still an enjoyable watch, but without Ryan Gosling, this film would completely lose its appeal for me.
When I found out the patriarchy wasn't about horses, I lost interest anyway.
9. The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys is Shane Black's 2016 buddy cop movie starring Russell Crowe and, of course, Ryan Gosling. Set in Los Angeles in the 70s, the film follows the serendipitous team-up of Holland March and Jackson Healy as they piece together the clues to track down a missing woman. For me, the plot of this film is just the vessel to carry the incredible chemistry and humor between Gosling and Crowe. It's incredibly witty in a way that feels refreshingly fun, and Gosling gives his most hilarious performance by far.
I'm not saying you don't gotta think on your feet. Bend a few rules, maybe. But it's worth it. As long as you get the results.
It's really a shame that he hasn't starred in more comedy films because his delivery, especially when playing off Crowe, is so good.
Tally, this is not you. You're not a murderer.
She just said she killed 3 people.
I know, but I'm saying deep down.
The comedy is not what drives the plot, which is a really good thing because it allows the humor to surprise you when you aren't expecting it. The mystery they're trying to solve is brought clarity as the film progresses, and I was actively invested in figuring out the details. The resolution is satisfying and unexpected, and as a whole, I had a really fun time with this film. 8. Blue Valentine. Blue Valentine tells the story of a relationship, from the very beginning to its eventual end. It's a film about people changing and growing apart until hatred and resentment become the substitute for love. The film is split in 2 parts. The early stages in the past, when Dean and Cindy first started dating, and the present, where their marriage is on thin ice and they have a child together. The juxtaposition of these 2 stages in the relationship creates a deeply emotional, tragically beautiful contrast. The joyful and naive love of the past is given a bittersweet touch, knowing the pain that will soon follow. As the name suggests, the film is a contrast of the highs and lows, the people we love and the pain we end up inflicting on them.
You always hurt the ones you love, the one you shouldn't hurt at all.
This scene is so moving because, as the 2 are innocently enjoying each other's presence, the words being sung will soon define their relationship. It's like they both know this self-sabotaging pattern of love, yet in the moment they choose to ignore it because being with each other is enough.
And if I were old, your heart last night It's because I love you.
Blue Valentine is a difficult watch because the story it tells isn't some idealized romance for the big screens, it's real life. Gosling and Michelle Williams are phenomenal together. This movie deserves an entire video on its own because there's so much more that I want to say, but I highly recommend it. Seven, Crazy Stupid Love. Before The Nice Guys showed us just how funny Gosling could be, Crazy Stupid Love was Gosling's first comedy film and the peak of his career, and it's amazing. The film follows Cal Weaver, played by Steve Carell, after he's just gotten a divorce. Wallowing in sorrow and self-pity at the bar one night, he's approached by Jacob Palmer. Jacob is the ultimate ladies' man. He's confident, charming, and handsome, and he makes it his personal mission to get Cal back on his feet and restore his manhood. Soon enough, Cal learns Jacob's ways of one-night stands and meaningless hookups. Everything changes when Jacob finds a girl who makes him rethink his entire lifestyle. Ultimately, the film emphasizes the emptiness that comes with a life of temporary relationships. Having learned that lesson, Cal comes out on the other side with a newfound gratitude for his wife and a willingness to start fresh. Every time I watch this film, I just have such a good time.
David Lindhagen.
David Lindhagen.
Okay.
Is this a bad time?
Yeah.
Steve Carell is hilarious, and Ryan Gosling is effortlessly cool and charismatic. Together, they're an incredibly underrated duo. Speaking of duos, Gosling and Emma Stone are back together in this film. I know Gosling is married to Eva Mendes, but these two were just made to be together in movies. 6. Lars and the Real Girl. Lars and the Real Girl subverted my expectations probably more than any other movie on this list. The film is about a very shy man named Lars, whose crippling introversion makes it almost impossible to socialize or make any friends. Lars lives in his brother's converted garage, but struggles even to make the journey across the lawn to share a meal with his brother and his family.
Lars! Come on, you promised!
One day, Lars buys a life-size doll online and declares her as his new girlfriend. He talks with her and treats her like a real human being.
I wanted to tell you that you look really pretty today.
Naturally, his family and the rest of the town are shocked and torn between condemning his actions and supporting Lars out of love for him. At the center of Lars's mind is the fear of death. His whole life he has pushed people away because he could never come to terms with the death of his mother. Surely a doll could never die, so with her he was finally able to be himself and love someone without the threat of them abandoning him. The town's love and support for Lars is heartwarming, and the conclusion of the film left me very optimistic for Lars's future.
Do you want to take a walk?
Yes.
The concept of this film is very bizarre, but it's well worth it for the heartfelt story and the impactful themes it has to share. Ryan Gosling took on a much different appearance for this role, and man, it's one of his best performances. 5. The Place Beyond the Pines. Out of every film on this list, The Place Beyond the Pines has been the one to linger in my mind the longest. I haven't seen it in over a year, but I still find myself looking out into the world around me and thinking about Luke Glanton. It's a film about fathers and the generational consequences that their actions have on their sons. Luke is a motorcycle stunt rider, until one day he finds out that he is a son with Eva Mendes' character, Romina. Having been completely absent for the first year of his son's life, Luke decides that he wants to be a part of it.
I was just gonna take him to the park, or maybe see if I could just sit on the porch.
In order to provide financially, Luke becomes obsessed with robbing banks.
You know something, Luke? If you ride like lightning, you're gonna crash like thunder.
The second half of the film takes a significant turn, picking up with Gosling's son as a teenager. While the lack of Gosling on screen was disappointing, I think the themes of the film are elevated by his absence. In my opinion, Gosling has never looked cooler in another film, and I think I need to buy a white motorcycle now. The score is amazing, and the cinematography is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're calling him back.
can't properly articulate the way this movie makes me feel, but my fondness for this film has only increased with time. The Place Beyond the Pines had a significant impact on my life, and I strongly recommend it. 4. First Man. First Man completely took me by surprise. I'm not usually a fan of space movies, but Damien Chazelle went all out to create a thoroughly engaging and beautiful film about the events that led up to Neil Armstrong being the first man to walk on the moon. At its core, the film follows a very straightforward story, but through standout performances by Gosling and Claire Foy, an incredible soundtrack, breathtaking cinematography, and so much more, First Man easily secures itself into the top 5 on this list. I was hesitant of Ryan Gosling in a role like this, but those doubts were completely smothered. He delivers an unexpectedly powerful performance as an astronaut, a husband, and a father. My favorite scene in the film takes place while Neil is on the moon. As he walks around in silence, flashback shots are interspersed showing his family together before his little girl died. Neil approaches a crater and unclasps his hand, revealing his daughter's small bracelet. The bracelet falls into the crater and disappears into the darkness. He went to the moon for her, and now he can rest. It's these emotional beats that really drive the film. Of course, it's about the technological and political achievements of space travel, but the film excels in understanding each character's motivations, what they're running from, and what matters most to them. While it may not be a quintessential Ryan Gosling film, First Man is without a doubt some of his best work. 3. Drive. Drive is Nicholas Winding Refn's masterpiece from 2011, starring Ryan Gosling as the driver. He's a getaway driver for criminals in Los Angeles. He himself doesn't get involved in the crimes, but if you need someone to drive, he's your guy.
There's 100,000 streets in this city. You don't need to know the route. You give me a time and a place, I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours. No matter what. Anything happens a minute either side of that and you're on your own.
Driver's life starts to shift when he meets Irene and her son Benicio. His stoic and cold persona takes on a newfound warmth and joy, and suddenly he has something to care about. Things get messy when Driver tries to help Irene's recently discharged husband repay a debt. Battling against the life he longs to have and the person he is inside, the driver does what he believes is right, finishing the job and tying up the loose ends. Drive has moments of violence and gore that contrast its subtle emotional beats. These inflection points mimic the driver's character. He's a man who wants to live a good and normal life, but the pent-up anger and potential for violence inside of him holds him back as it breaches the surface.
How about this? Shut your mouth, or I'll kick your teeth down your throat and I'll shut it for you.
This is Gosling's best performance of the 2010s, and for many, it's his best film to date. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and the cinematography is beautiful. As with almost every one of these movies, they deserve an entire dedicated video to fully express their importance. But for now, let's move on to number 2, Blade Runner 2049. The pinnacle of the literally me character. Drive was the precursor, but now, watching this film is like looking into a mirror for 2.5 hours straight, in the best way. This movie is just about everything I could ask for in a film, and I dare say it's one of the best sequels of all time. I'm a huge fan of the first film, and 2049 does a great job at branching off to tell a new story while expanding on the world that Blade Runner fans love.
Honey, you can go anywhere you want in the world now. Where do you want to go first?
At its core, the film is about a replicant named Joe who discovers a glimmer of hope for the first time in his life. A thought takes root in his mind, a thought that he might actually mean something and have value beyond just being a tool for the LAPD.
I always told you, you're special. Born, not made.
In the end, Joe was no more important than any other replicant. The beauty of Blade Runner 2049 falls in the hands of a protagonist that could have been anyone.
You imagined it was you. Oh, you did.
Joe's actions, then, are the primary indicator of his merit, and through him the burning questions of the film are asked.
Hey, you've been getting on fine without one.
What's that, madam?
A soul.
Questions that try to draw the line between humanity and imitation, make us question the future of our own world, questions about love and finding meaning in our lives, and so much more.
Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.
It's a beautiful film, and there's no one in the world who could have played the part better than Ryan Gosling. At long last, and a surprise to no one I'm sure, the best Ryan Gosling movie is La La Land. Not only is it first on this list of Ryan Gosling films, but La La Land secures a top 10 spot as one of my all-time favorites.
Not much to look at, huh?
I've seen better.
This film is infused with so much style, rhythm, and color, delivering the most exuberant highs and the most heartbreaking lows. Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are a tried and true pair that manage to seem fresh and refined with every iteration.
You again.
The film tells the story of two struggling artists pursuing their craft. Mia, an aspiring actor, and Sebastian, a jazz enthusiast.
I think I hear what you're saying, but I don't think you're saying what you mean.
Yeah, I don't think you hear what I'm saying. You're fired.
No, that's what you're saying, but it's not what you mean. What you mean is...
You're fired.
Play the set list.
As the relationship forms and progresses, it becomes a matter of priorities. The question is asked, how far are you willing to risk everything for the sake of success? Ultimately, Chazelle proposes the answer, succeeding at your dream is worth risking everything.
You gotta give it everything you got. Everything. It's your dream.
The end of the film shows us the life that could have been if only Mia and Sebastian's relationship wasn't sacrificed to reach greatness. It's heartbreaking, but in that brief moment of eye contact, both of them seem to be content with the choice they made. I can't talk about La La Land without mentioning the soundtrack. I'm sure many people can relate when I say that this movie is single-handedly responsible for making me like jazz.
So it's conflict, and it's compromise, and it's just... It's new every time. It's very, very exciting.
While I can't with confidence say this is Gosling's definitive best performance, it's certainly one to remember, and La La Land is my favorite movie he's been in to date. 2 years ago, they said it was all a phase, that this strange obsession with the 42-year-old Canadian man would pass, and maybe it should have by now, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into the why behind it all. Why guys like me and so many others feel the way we do about these fictional characters portrayed by a man with dirty blonde hair. But that's a topic for another time. For now, all I can say is that Ryan Thomas Gosling is my favorite actor, not because he's the best to ever do it, or because he's the most handsome or the funniest, although those are pretty good reasons, but because he's literally you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.